and then I can do some editing after the fact.
Okay.
Hello, my fellow modeling and tabletop gaming enthusiasts, and welcome to this very special episode of the Mediocre Modeler Show. I'm joined here by Mark Becker of the Wisconsin Maritime Museum, and we are in the forward torpedo room of the USS Cobia, a Gato-class submarine, formerly of the United States Navy. So, Mark, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So, what can you tell us as a brief history of the Cobia herself?
Cobia was not built in Manitowoc like some people assume. She was built in Groton, Connecticut. She was built in 43, commissioned in 1944, made 6 war patrols, sank 13 enemy ships, and rescued 7 downed American pilots that were forced to ditch in the ocean. So she, in one short year, she had quite the life.
Yes, she did, and those 13 ships accounted for just under 17,000 tons of enemy shipping. I will make a quick note. I forgot that Cobia does have a little bit of a
Rock and roll.
Yeah. I'm trying to find my sea legs again. It's been a little while. So now, Mark, Cobia has been here in Manitowoc for quite some time, about 40 years now, 40, almost 50 years.
Since 1970, correct.
Now, even though she wasn't built here in Manitowoc, what makes her special to the city?
Cobia is almost identical to the 28 subs that were built here in Manitowoc. When the museum wanted to get a Manitowoc-built sub for display, there were none available. So the Cobia was in Milwaukee working as a training vessel, training reservists, and she was about this close to being scrapped. And they grabbed her and brought her here in 1970 and been working on her ever since.
And
she represents all the 28 boats that were built here. So basically, Cobia is representing her sisters.
yes, the 28 ships from the Manitowoc Shipbuilding Company, correct?
Correct.
And a really cool thing that I found out the first time I was here about 24 years ago is these ships were all built on the river. And the river was not wide enough to launch them in the traditional stern-first way. Like if you see Titanic or a number of other large vessels being launched from their slipways, they slide down the slipways backwards. So I can't say that they pioneered the process, but they had to use the process where they actually launched the ships sideways, long ways, short ways, but sideways into the river, which I thought was a pretty cool thing.
They basically dropped them in.
Yeah, and you can see videos of that kind of stuff going on online. Much larger ships than Cobia herself. Now, one thing I have talked about in past episodes is the project to dry dock the USS Cobia. Now, Mark, what can you tell us? What is dry docking a ship?
Dry docking any ship, from an aircraft carrier down to a small ship, is basically outside maintenance for that ship. Cobia has been sitting here since I forget what year her last dry docking was, but she's been sitting in one spot all that time. Her entire hull below the water is covered in mussels, 100% front to back. We actually had divers go down to check, and they couldn't even get to the hull because of the mussels. So dry docking a ship is basically preserving her life. It's like us going into the doctor for a checkup. So that's what we're trying to do with Cobia. We got to get her in there, get her dry docked, get all those mussels cleaned off of there, get her sandblasted, repainted, and bring her back.
Awesome. Now, a number of other much larger museum vessels have actually recently, in the last couple of years, undergone massive dry dock projects. I believe starting with the battleship Texas, followed by the battleship New Jersey, as well as the Fletcher-class destroyer Kidd. So other than removing all the mussels from the hull, are there any other specific projects or things that the museum hopes to accomplish with dry docking?
Oh, absolutely. Part of the tour, I tell my tours, you can't see Cobia's stern diving planes. They're still underwater. Hopefully they haven't rusted away, but we can't see them. They're underwater constantly. Cobia's torpedo tubes, they're underwater constantly, and they're functional. They open, close. We don't know how rusted shut they are. So in some cases, those outer torpedo tube doors have to be removed, refabricated, and put back on. Those tubes can be flooded like that. If something, God forbid, happens up forward there, we'd be in a bad way. So we have to get her into dry dock to preserve her life.
Yes, again, this is one of only a handful of Gato-class submarines and even the later Baleo-class submarines. I can't remember just how many or how few are left, to be honest, but there aren't many. So that's why it is so important to be able to dry dock a ship like this and to generate the funds to do that. Now, I know the museum is hoping to have her in dry dock by this fall, and I think I wanted to say it was something around $1.5 million was the cost of dry dock. So if anybody out there would like to donate to the cause to help cover the cost for dry docking Cobia, where could they go to donate?
Just contact the Wisconsin Maritime Museum, email, telephone call, whatever you need to do, and the people in the office will help you out.
All right, and if you plan on visiting the museum yourself, I noticed there is a donation box up there that I plan on dropping some money in on my way out. So yeah, definitely, if you're going to be in the area, come by and visit, because one, the submarine herself is just absolutely phenomenal, and a lot of the exhibits, all of the exhibits inside the museum are definitely worth checking out as well. We drove up an hour and a half from Milwaukee this morning after driving 5.5 hours from Des Moines to get to the convention. It's definitely worth a trip. When I first learned about Cobia, I was about 12 or 13 years old. I had to wait until I was 2 or 3 more years till I was 15 to come visit her, and it did not disappoint. So definitely.
And Cobia just celebrated her 82nd birthday.
Well, happy birthday, girl.
Oh yeah. So we had a big party for her with hats and balloons and oh yeah, she's spoiled. Yeah.
All right, and she does not look a day over 71. So Mark, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
So again, folks, visit the website for the Wisconsin Maritime Museum to find out ways that you can donate to help for the preservation of the USS Cobia.
Come see us.
Here you can see the stern of Cobia, and that hump there is actually the rear door. The museum, for ease of access, cut doors in both her front and rear torpedo rooms, the fore and aft torpedo rooms, just to make getting in and out easier for guests. This is a view from the stern looking forward. You can see the sail, or the conning tower as it's called, her 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft gun, and also towards the very front, just in front of the conning tower, you can see her 3-inch deck gun that she would have used when she was surfaced. This is a view forward looking aft. At the front of the conning tower, you can see her 3-inch deck gun just to the left of the screen there. And up on top of that first little level there is another anti-aircraft gun, a 20mm Oerlikon. You can see the 20mm anti-aircraft gun there again, and this plaque is actually commemorating the only member of Cobia's crew to have been lost during the war. Now here we're at the aft end of the conning tower looking forward. You can see her 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft gun. And then we move over to the 3-inch deck gun. Sorry for the weird angle, it's kind of tough to fit into the frame. So this is in the main control room of Cobia, her bridge, if you will, and these 2 red wheels are actually what they would use to control the fore and aft diving planes, which would actually help her, or controlled, what angle she would dive or surface at. Here we have her main steering wheel, which would determine her movement left to right. And then I think this is sort of the main plotting table, so they could plot their courses to figure out where they were going. So this is going to be a little kind of tough to understand. So this is a view looking up from the control room or the bridge into the conning tower, the inside of the conning tower. It's not accessible to museum guests, but they've got a mirror up there so you can kind of see what all is up there. These are just kind of some control panels in the main fuse box for Cobia on the bridge. Next is actually the radio room, which is is a fully functioning radio room at this point. The museum volunteers have completely restored the radio room to working condition, and they will use it on occasion to do sort of amateur broadcasts. Here we have the galley, which is the kitchen on board the submarine. And the one thing that I thought was pretty cool was the big old stand mixer in the back of the ship, or back of the galley, excuse me. They would provision these ships for, several, 2-3 months at a time. So they would have food everywhere, stored everywhere in every possible space within the ship and just use it up as they went. So it was pretty interesting to see. This is actually the access hatch for the ship's freezer, where they kept all their frozen goods. The crew's enlisted mess would have been where the enlisted men would eat and entertain themselves. So we have the film projector as well as books, records, and a radio. We've got the enlisted bathroom area, and then of course the head or the toilet. And the thing that I find really interesting is the tiling on the floor is pretty comical to me, because one of the bathrooms in my grandmother's house growing up had that exact same type of tile. This is another really cool piece of the ship, one of her 4 16-cylinder diesel locomotive engines. Now, when I was there about 24 years ago, they were working on restoring one of them, and they have 2 of them restored and running, and they are incredibly loud, or so I've been told. I haven't heard myself, but they are incredibly loud and really cool. Now, these engines would power the electric generators that would provide power to the ship, charge her batteries for when she was running underwater, as well as power the motors that actually drove her propellers. I'm fairly certain what I'm standing next to is actually one of the pistons for one of the cylinders of these diesel engines. You can see this is where it's removed to show you inside the engine, and then I'm pretty sure that was the piston, which is pretty cool because it was a pretty massive thing. We've got some more various controls within the engine room here, and there are 2 engine rooms for the four diesel engines. And then this is a catwalk behind the engines if you needed to get back there and do some repairs. And then a little machine shop here at the back with a little lathe at the back of the engineering space. I think this was in main control is what they call it, where they can control the engines, the speed, throttle, everything like that. And then we rounded out the tour in the aft torpedo room. We got a pretty cool video coming up here for you in just a second. There was crew berthing back there as well. And then you can see me standing next to some of the bunks and the loading trays for those big torpedoes.
Sit right over here. See number 7? See that red button right above it? You got her? Push the button. She just fired a torpedo. No. Hit it again. And of course, it would be louder, and the back of the boat would shimmy, but that's the basic idea. Good job.
Well, that was an absolutely incredible experience that I would strongly encourage anyone that's going to be around the Manitowoc area to go visit the Wisconsin Maritime Museum and go check out USS Cobia. 2 years ago, Mrs. Mediocre Modeler and I went and toured U-505 at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, which was really cool because I'd never seen a U-boat before, and I didn't realize just how small they were. Much more tight and cramped quarters. And not that, you know, a Gato-class submarine such as Cobia was, you know, terribly larger, but it just, the hatches were easier to get through. There was a little bit more room to move around, I think, which was pretty neat. Cobia is also much more accessible. With U-505, a lot of spaces you can just narrow little passageways to walk by, and they've got plexiglass covers to, you know, prevent theft and vandalism and things like that. But I think what is really cool is with Cobia especially, when you enter the forward hatch, you go directly into the forward torpedo room, which is not accessible on U-505. When you leave Cobia, the last compartment that you go through is the aft torpedo room. So you get to go in, and as you saw in that video, which was really cool, we did not know that that was going to happen. We kind of had an impromptu tour with another group of couples that happened to be there. We did not know the torpedo firing sequence was going to take place, so that was really cool. But yes, I would very strongly encourage anyone who's even remotely interested in that stuff to check out the museum. They have some absolutely incredible exhibits. Not just related to Cobia herself, but to maritime history on the Great Lakes, which for those who, if you didn't know, and that there is a very rich maritime history on the Great Lakes. You've probably heard of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, the iron ore tanker that unfortunately sank November 10th, 1975. So this will be the 50th anniversary of her sinking, and took all 29 of her crew with her. Learning about that when I was young was kind of what sparked my interest in Great Lakes naval history. Even during the War of 1812, there was at least one battle fought between the British Royal Navy and the fledgling American Navy on the Great Lakes, which is kind of interesting. But shipping on the Great Lakes has been a huge thing for hundreds of years now. With the rich resources up in Canada and the northern United States and those areas, it's a really cool thing. So they've got a lot of exhibits on that. They've got an exhibit dedicated to shipwrecks on Lake Michigan. And another thing that is new since the last time I went there, which a lot is new since the last time I was there, was a refurbished or restored triple expansion steam engine from a ferry. The Chief Wawatam was a ferry in service for nearly 100 years. And one of her, like I said, triple expansion steam engines, which is like 2.5 stories tall, has been completely restored. It's not, it's not generating any power, but they do actually have it in operation where you can see it moving and going up and down, which is really cool. I didn't realize that. And when I started reading the plaques, I had to run back and take a picture of the model that they had on display. I thought it was so cool. But yes, I'd strongly encourage anyone to go visit the museum, the Wisconsin Maritime Museum. When you get a chance, go visit the Cobia. And there will be links down in the description to take you directly to that portion of the museum's website if you want to donate to help with the preservation of Cobia. We made a small donation ourselves, so I'm hoping that anyone that's interested in this or thought this was pretty cool would also consider giving. So again, I want to extend my sincere thanks to Mark Becker as well as the Wisconsin Maritime Museum for agreeing to do this interview and giving us the tour and everything. It was absolutely incredible. And just even getting, after we'd done the interview, standing on the deck of a World War II submarine, talking with a submarine veteran about other museum ships across the country and all of that stuff was just absolutely incredible. So definitely think about making a donation, because we don't have a lot of these museum ships left, which are just amazing artifacts of our history as not only a country, but also as as human beings. So definitely think about a donation. Even a small donation would be great to help preserve the USS Cobia. So thank you very much, folks, for watching. I know this is a little bit unusual compared to our normal content, but one of the highest rated videos I ever had was actually, I think it's my second highest rated video, was when the old warbirds came to town last summer and the P-51 taking off and taxiing. So I hope you'll enjoy this as well. So again, thank you very much for watching. We'll probably be seeing a lot more content come out in the next couple of days as I kind of wrap up a lot of stuff from Adepticon. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try not to overload it, because I want everything to get some decent exposure, because we got some really cool stuff. So definitely stay tuned. And until next time, which I can almost guarantee won't be too long, may your paints be thin, your brushes be pointy, and your dice be hot.